From the Annual Association for the Study of High Capacities and Giftedness, we want to welcome you to this second international conference on positive synergies over high capacities and giftedness in times of crisis. It's my honor to introduce you today to Rosalina Macías Martínez. She's a businesswoman, mentor, she's got an education science master. She has created the International Global Community for Intelligence and Talent, and the title of her conference is Building the Meaning in Adults with High Capacities, Reengineering the Self. Good morning. Hi, and I'm Rosalina Macías. I've got a master's in science education, and I'm the one creating the CIVIT program. I want to thank the Annual Association for this invitation to these international talks from Oviedo in Spain and organized by the Annual Association. In this case, I'd like to talk to you about building the meaning for high-capacity adults, re-engineering ourselves. In this talk, we will review how high-capacity adults can have an existential depression that may lead them to a limit way of living their life. They may feel that nothing is enough, and in some cases we even see a dependency, addictions, our beliefs, or what we should be, or to a high-intensity emotional intelligence and the way we see things. We're going to talk about a proposal to change these paradigms through the re-engineering of the self, so we can have a happy life, full life, and building our meaning and our reason for living. To start this conference, I'd like to share Lauda's story. Lauda is a girl that was born in a low-income family. She was the smallest of 10. Lauda surprised her mom because at the age of 10 months she would get off the crib and would go and look for her baby bottle. That surprised her mom and her family. She learned she could read at the age of 3, and she would take the newspapers and review the letters so that she could learn. And she would keep constantly her mom, what does it say here? Her mom tried to send her to the kindergarten or to the school, the primary school, but they didn't accept her. She was constantly in an imaginary world full of fantasy. And she would cry constantly whenever she would listen to the news or when someone killed a fly. She did gain some labels from her family, and as she was growing, her social environment would also label her, such as she was the one who was weaning, crying all the time. She had a bad temper because she defended other insects or pets. And then she would get into fights with her neighbors. She somehow realized little by little that she was different. She didn't feel people would listen to her. And even though at the beginning she wasn't sure what these differences were or why was she different. But from the earliest childhood, she was building herself somehow, and it led her to disappoint her and give up her studies. She just managed somehow to finish primary studies with the support of her parents, but with that same support of her parents, she also left the school. She was out of those 10 in the family. They considered that because she was the little one, it was the one that was going to have to look after their parents. Conclusion to this story, it was that the first challenge for Lauda was to be born in a house that was too small for her, as we can see in this image of Alice in Wonderland from a film of 1951, Disney film, where her own home for Alice was too small. But as a result of this story, we can also see this other image where she finds herself in a bottle and how she's somehow, Alice, was with her self-esteem so little and trapped in a bottle, in a very, very small bottle, so she could get out of her home, grow up, become an adult, and live her own life. We're going to overview some of the challenges that most intelligent people face, those people who are above the population average. And some researchers say that it's 12% of the population, of the world population, who lays on this area. Eric Maisel, a naturalist psychologist, proposes some of the challenges to which the intelligent people face. The first one is that society doesn't value their intelligence. And why is this? Well, sometimes for political reasons, for power, political and social power is not valued. Intelligence is not valued because it's questioning intelligence. It's an intelligence that it's facing lies, that they know when they're being told a lie, and they are not ready to let politicians do this. This is why many of the collectives, the societies, try to isolate, socially isolate the most intelligent people. The second challenge that Eric Maisel presents is that most intelligent people sometimes do a routinary work day after day, year after year, that they're not putting into practice their full potential, and somehow they feel a bit trapped in a cage, like this hamster is just going round and round in its wheel. And that leads them to question their own existence. Is this the purpose of my life? Another challenge that very, very intelligent people face is being trapped in a very, very small, very narrow corner of a discipline, especially for those who have multiple talents or multiple intelligences, and they want to get involved in different areas, and they are identified to be very good for different activities, but they just limit themselves to be doing a very repetitive task in one discipline, one field of expertise, because that provides them some kind of safety. Another challenge that intelligent people face is feeling alienated and out of tune with their culture, their families, and their friends. In the image we have, and the story I tell you about Laura, that's exactly how she felt. All the time she felt out of place where she was living. She had other expectations. She wanted to live in a different way, in a different economic and social context. She was rejected even from her own family, and her parents, they weren't even friends. She didn't really want to live with that type of people. They were constantly, and she felt constantly isolated and apart from all that. Another challenge that they face is that to be trapped or to be subject to bad habits, to certain pains, being in constant tension that makes you scratch your head, smoke, press your jaws. These kind of things happen very often when you're trying to concentrate so hard in a problem that is causing you stress. It can be an intellectual problem, creative issue. This somehow helps to develop this type of habits That's also a challenge for them. The next challenge they face is to handle an overexcited brain, because I always say that high capacity people are very intelligent and they somehow come with a Ferrari as a brain and a Ferrari as a heart. And Eric Maisel tells us that these people keep thinking all the time, leading them to have insomnia, to have certain obsessions, certain habits, compulsive behavior, addictions to substances or to food, or different types of compulsive behaviors. Because it's that combination between that thinking brain, that constantly thinking brain, and that heart that is also a Ferrari that is wanting to live intense experiences. So you try to look for a way to give those endorphins to your brain through substances or behaviors. And always looking for that process of intensity.
Otros de los desafíos de las personas inteligentes.
Let's go back. So some more challenges that these intelligent people find are to be intelligent, but not as intelligent as they would like to, or they would need to be. And that shows us how demanding, self-demanding these intelligent people are. It's like a self-punishment sometimes, because you've got such high expectations about yourself that you hesitate. And sometimes you show the imposter syndrome. You don't see what you can do. You think that you're lucky, maybe because your friend or your husband helped you, because your friends supported you, but you don't believe in your talent, in your capacities. All these challenges happen mainly because you haven't identified, because you haven't had the right identification of the abilities or an early identification, especially when they come to being adults of previous generations, X generation, for example, or those millennial generation. They live these type of challenges during their adulthood. Yes, they are intelligent, but they would like to be more, because they're constantly questioning what's going on and what they can do or not. And sometimes you do things so easily that you think that others do it the same. And when you say, wow, what you did is extraordinary, you just think, well, it's as easy that you don't even think that those abilities, those talents are really that worthy. Another challenge of very intelligent people is to use as a defense the reasoning capacity of their brain to reduce the anxiety they're experimenting. You're always justifying with very good reasons that your brain is making up, that brains are very good at building reasons, complex reasoning, and to be defending yourself constantly from the whole anxiety and stress that you're experimenting. Or to put it on the positive side, to defending you from those thoughts that are producing on yourself that stress and anxiety. And sometimes you don't even realize, you're not aware of the now and this present moment and how you are generating it this way. Another challenge that we find very often is to love language and to be trapped in certain words or sentences, to train those non-stop thoughts. And as you can see in that image, you stay there, stopped and paralyzed. It's like a trap. You said to yourself, you stay in that cycle that is a bit like the hamster, but not physically, but mentally. Loving those complex languages that you love in literature, that you find in literature, those strange theories, those complex theories that allow you to be constantly in your mind, going round and round, feeling fascinated by those complex mental thoughts, but that they don't lead you anywhere, they don't lead you to any conclusion. And that very often is just a trap that your brain is playing on you. It's a trick of your brain to paralyze you. Another challenge, according to Eric Maisel, is to experiment problems related to significance, to meaning. Because you see through traditional answers or about the nature of the universe or why we exist, why people have to die, or why God allows wars, or why God allows, if God created it all and is so almighty, why does He allow all these things to happen? Or we think about other deeper things, about how the universe was created, or we question the existence of God. There's kids that from the age of 6, they question why do they have to die or why were they born? It's questions, very complex questions. They're not easy to answer, but they can really torment you. They produce anxiety, stress, not being able to answer to this. Or maybe, yes, you do have an answer to it, but you don't understand in your surrounding context why people don't understand your answer. They don't even understand why you're questioning what you're actually questioning. When we talk about metacognition, the question about the question. People see you as a weirdo because you're suffering, because you want to find those answers that your brain is looking for, and you don't find those answers, and they're very complex, and your mind can make the questions and you need an answer. And finally, one more is to feel more sad, more upset than other people when trying to understand existence, relevant facts. Sometimes I tell them that high capacity people have glasses that magnify everything. It's like a telescope they can see in the distance, as if they were telescopes that you can see those tools that allow you to see big shows or sports event in a sports center, in a stadium, that you can see. You can have that vision, or you can anticipate yourself to certain events with an intuitive feeling. And sometimes others can't see, that's not going to happen, you're crazy. And then it does happen. Surprisingly. They do happen. And then it's very interesting to see that this super magic power makes you connect to that emotional Ferrari, where those existence events, they hurt you. You can cry for political behavior, for a murder happening somewhere else, even if it's not your context. And you can feel touched to the tears for those things that happen in our planet and in our existence. There are many other challenges shown by Eric Maisels. I compiled these 11 because I thought they were the ones that mostly connect to the self. So now that we know the challenges, I can ask you these questions that are for you to think around. Which are your first thoughts about the challenges that I have identified? You, as a very intelligent person, have you felt identified with some of this? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Do you agree that an intelligent person has a higher risk to suffer significant crisis, existential crisis? Does it make any sense to create meaning based in values after seeing all these challenges that I presented? And as meaning is mainly a subjective psychological experience, what do you think you can do to create more for yourself? How could the idea of meaning itself for you help you manage a meaning crisis? Do you think that you're living a meaning crisis in your life? Does that sound in you? I'll just leave you there so you can review and reflect. And if this has some kind of meaning for you, then we would be facing before the decision, do we want to change? How do we want to change? And knowing that we can build, we can create a meaning for our lives to be happier, to understand ourselves first, and to be able to understand the environment where we are developing. Going back to the initial story that I told you about, Lauda lives, she's deeply unhappy as an adult with all the situations in her family, and from her childhood she always felt isolated from her context. And of course she reached adulthood living a meaningful crisis. Maisel, as a naturalist psychologist, defends meaning as first a subjective psychological experience. And that, what does this mean? It's so individual as you and I are. The meaning of your life has nothing to do with the meaning of my life, and therefore it would take us to the need of identifying the idea of our own personal meaning. I cannot live my life according to what it meant, to family value meant, or individualism meant for my family, for my country, for my environment. I need to find my own answers. And that's excellent news for high-capacity people. He also mentions meaning as the simple evaluation, assessment of your life as significative. He also mentioned the possibility of generating or building a meaning. If we go from the starting point that we can define our own meaning, our own personal meaning. He also tells us that the most important thing about the meaning is to create it and to maintain it in time. And then he also suggests that we should be building this meaning every day. Here, and after going over these questions, my next question is to ask you, ask yourself, what are we prioritizing in our life? There are three different lines within our existence. As a juggler is what we're doing in our life, and we're deciding what is taking more relevance between having, doing, and being. Sometimes when we are very young or when we are beginning our professional career, give a priority to having a car, a girlfriend, a house, to have my first kid. We then have the yellow ball doing the doing. When I'm not thinking, I just do. These two balls, both blue and yellow one, having and doing, is usually an experience to the outside. And then we have this red ball, a color that I really like, and that's the being, the ball for the being, for the self. How much priority are we giving to ourself, to our being, our self-acceptance, loving ourselves, looking after ourselves in all areas in our life, emotionally feeding ourselves, doing what we like most, validating ourselves as people? Where does this priority stand? From there, we can build on a daily basis what we do. In other areas of our life, we focus ourselves in doing, to carry on having, to continue having. When you're married, when your priority is to develop a professional career, building your own business, when you get into this wheel of doing, you go from having to doing because you want to have a bigger house, you want to travel, you want to go to different countries, you want your kids to go to the best school. And then, again, the red ball, the being ball, is on the third place. That's the next step in our life. Eric Mason proposes, as well as James Way, expert in high capacities and in socio-emotional interventions. And the specific proposal from Eric Mason is to find your meaning every day. So let's put all these balls in a perfect balance. But as you can see, the being is the basis for it, for having and doing. That's the base. That's going to give us a great balance. It's going to stay out of stress. It's going to help us accept ourselves better, understand others better. But especially, it's going to help us keep juggling that being, that self-being, and that doing, that having. Part of the proposal that I'm giving you today, and it's part of a course that I do with young people from the 18-year-old to the early adults, university students, for example, is re-engineering of the self. When we focus in the self, in our being, what we're doing is building a life with values, as Maisel is doing with a great hope, and building meaning every single day. How are we going to break that vicious circle that stressful image that we saw in the previous slides. Well, I really like this slide, and I like being able to share this presentation, this slide, because on one side of this vicious circle there's an arrow that goes outwards. When we're inside this vicious circle with the doing and having, and we're always focusing on the external side, competing with my neighbor for a better car, for a better position, for a better car, or with my cousin, or with whoever. When I manage to go towards the virtuous circle, building a meaning and of my being, if you realize that arrow goes towards the inside. When we stop looking at the context, we stop looking at our surrounding, we can look inwards. An inward look validates what we are. I love my being, my essence, my abilities, my strengths, and from all of them, I build. What's going to take me to this change? From the circle, from the vicious circle to the virtuous circle. Well, we do change through two very important tools that Gagné also talks about. That is motivation and discipline. Motivation is what leads us to do things, and is exactly what is connected with meaning. Why? Why do I get up every morning to do things? What is moving me? What is taking me, leading me to do things and to have what I want? And the only thing that is going to take me there is discipline. And discipline, as Stephen Covey understands, is just making things happen. Just that. If I decide that I'm going to do exercise, going to stand up, get up from bed, get my sport outfit, and do whatever I have to do, I make it happen. That 30 minutes walk or putting on my swimming costume and go down to the pool, that's all I need to do. Reengineering the self can be done. It's also a methodology that is done in businesses and companies. It works very well. We can also do it with ourself, and we can do it at any time of our life. Currently, at a world level, many million people are questioning their own existence. COVID came to teach us how weak we are, that we can't give anything for granted, and that life changes from one day to the other. So, my proposal for you, what are you waiting for to do that self-engineering? And now I want to carry on with some of the recommendations that Maisel does to us to build meaning every day. Give a direction, set a route. Spend a couple of minutes every day to think at the beginning of the day, where am I going to find my meaning today? This is going to give you a direction, it's going to give you a route, plan, and you're going to slowly move towards the virtuous circle. The next recommendation that Maisel does is to keep a practical routine every morning. Design an activity routine that you want to do and focus in being, correction by the speaker, then in doing, and as a consequence, you will feel a progress and go towards having. You will see a progress this way, slowly, but constantly. As the same way, you can renew this the same way your body renews itself every 24 hours. The third advice that Maisel gives us is to, out of all the challenges that we reviewed today, point at your highest, your biggest meaning point and challenge. Which one did it hurt most? Which one did you feel was closer to you? Because if one of them caught your attention more than another, that would be the priority to start working. Choose and prioritize. What do you want to start working on? Because we put a especially emphasis on meaningful, on doing this, because you're going to build resilience. You're going to love yourself without any boundaries. It can be a process that can be as long as you want or as short as you want, but you should be having fun every single day in your life. Another advice is to look towards the future, to decide how you will feel at each moment in a meeting, when you go out on a trip, connecting all the time with yourself and feeling that you are under control, especially when you're going to try new situations that could be causing you some kind of stress or anxiety. Anticipate those achievements, that happiness. Anticipate and decide how you want to feel and how you're going to act. Our next advice from Maisel is to define your leisure time. It's very important that you define 2 hours at least, if your agenda allows you, to do exactly what you want to do, what you decide, and even not do anything. That's fine, as long as that makes you feel good. Sit down and listen to your favorite music, read your favorite book, leave those 2 hours just for doing that. Do some yoga, do some breathing exercises, whatever you want to do. But you should know that that's the time you're spending for yourself, that you've got an opportunity to live there. The next recommendation is to allow yourself to be flexible. This talks to us about giving ourselves the opportunity to be spontaneous, to enjoy, to relax, and to be able to let go, to let yourself flow and just be. Feel easier ways to be, and without feeling that you've lost your control or that your life is a mess because you had an appointment cancelled, because you didn't get things to happen as you wanted, because the project didn't work out. Whatever happens around you that very often makes you feel bad, that you may feel failure because you didn't reach your objectives there. Well, this advice talks about this, being flexible, allow ourselves to be flexible, let things change, and mainly that those negative things that happen to us can be growth opportunities. Even if it's just to learn to be flexible, to give ourselves freedom to be spontaneous, to relax ourselves, and to be also under control, to have everything under control. Another advice that Maisel gives us is specifically investing in ourselves, not only in your company, not only in your project, in a professional course, training course. Invest in a course for your own personal development, in a trip to the mountain or to the beach to breathe. All those leisure trips, learning trips are important for you too, not just business trips or working trips. But when you build your professional life as part of yourself, of your being, looking for that balance, that's also good. But that's what Maisel suggests us to do when he says invest in yourself, in your being. The next advice is to think about thoughts that are of some use. We are thinking over what we're thinking, keeping them aligned with our thoughts, aligned with our intentions. We are going to guarantee that we will be thinking about things that are useful, and we are rejecting those that are not useful. And this exercise of thinking and observing our mind constantly, and to be able to reject these thoughts that are not aligned with our being, those that hurt us, that make us feel small, that make us feel that we're not enough. Those thoughts are not helping us for growth. They're not helping us to work on our self-esteem. They're not helping us build our own meaning. So, the best is to observe our mind, to select our thoughts, and to take a waste bin to throw these useless thoughts straight away. Another advice from Maisel is to behave in useful ways. Same way as we do with thoughts, every day we should do a constant behavioral work to make our actions to be aligned with our intentions. This way, we won't be behaving in any way that is not aligned with our intentions. For example, if someone makes you really angry and you know you're very intense and you've got a heart that is a Ferrari, and that adrenaline will go from 0 to 100 in 3 seconds, it's better to breathe, to give yourself a break and not to let that monster come out, and to go towards those behaviors that are more aligned with our intentions and with what we want to be. Another advice that Maisel is giving us is check on the opportunity, on your meaning opportunities. He proposes us to create a meaning that is based in values, building a menu of meaning opportunities that you can check and you can redefine. It can be a constant and ongoing process. I can decide every day, and you don't have to stick to one idea, but as you are feeding yourself with those values in which you believe around love, friendship, respect, friends and friendship, depending on what you build, it tells you write a menu of those opportunities, those meaning opportunities, and I tell you a bit more, I go a bit further. Maisel also refers, the same as Covey does, to an emotional bank. If you're building your meaning on a daily basis, it's as if you were investing on a daily basis to an emotional bank. You decide also what your relations are going to be like when you've been investing in that emotional bank. When you need help, somebody who can look after your kid, your neighbor, your cousin, and you have a relationship with this person that's helping you. You've put in your emotional bank. Of course, you will have that person ready to help you. That's the basis of relations, feeding that emotional bank. And Maisel is specifically telling you to build your own emotional bank with your own meaning menu. What nurtures you? What can you do to build these meaning opportunities, but they are unfinished, that you understand them as they are, and from there you can build new meaning opportunities. Another recommendation that we also get is to stop meaning escapes. Every day things can happen that they could be draining our meaning. It can make our meaning run away. If we receive an unpleasant emotional news, if we receive the refusal of a relative, your mom, your kids, a relative, this leads to an escape of our meaning, and it can lead us to an existential crisis. It leads us to stress. It questions us why we're here, what we're here for. So what he says is that we should do is to deal with those feelings in the same moment. We decide that they're not experiences that are relevant to our meaning, and we can decide to put them outside, so we don't leave such intensity that it might lead us to that vicious circle that it keeps us questioning constantly, hesitating about ourselves, and knowing that that is external to us. Another recommendation that we get is to face special situations. And when we're talking about this, Maisel mentions to be handling them as they happen, to pay attention to their reality and decide what you want to do to repair the situation. And this, in special situations, refers a bit more to the external side. For example, when something happens with your boss, with your team at work, with colleagues at university, situations that you can decide to solve or repair in that moment. But you should know that you are in control and that there is a solution. How far can you get? How much can you manage it? How much can you do? If you insulted someone without an intention, and the other person can be angry at you, you can try to solve that and maybe apologize. And then the other side may accept your apologies, and maybe you can try to solve. But you did your share. You should make sure that you don't keep all these elements into your regrets or revenge box. We have to be cleaning ourselves constantly so we don't have these meaning crises. Another recommendation that we get is that you check those opportunities for meaning that we were talking about, but being all the time re-signifying these opportunities and change them constantly. We go back to the menu, we check, and then we build the new meaning opportunities. And then recommendation number 14 is, I think, the best and probably the hardest, is to put it in practice. Because Maisel says that we should consider our whole life as a practice, and every day a day to practice. One single day is a day for practice, because our objective is to participate of the building of this meaning, the creation of this meaning based on values. So we could summarize, do the next correct thing. This would probably be our motto, our statement, our mantra. Do the next thing that is right. practice your meaning every day. It means to connect to everything that I consider is right, that is doing me good, that is making me feel good, that is making me act good. And this leads us to our last recommendation, the last recommendation from Maisel, where we necessarily need to change our paradigm. And this change is based on stop looking for meaning, stop waiting for that meaning to arrive, and to start creating meaning every single day, practicing every day, and creating your own meaning based on values. This is Maisel's proposal, but there are many tools that you can use that can help you to do this re-engineering of yourself, that can lead you to integrate your self-being. And I thank you very much for having listened to me in this conference. And to close it, I also want to share some more questions with you, such as what special challenges do you experiment because of your high intelligence? How would you like to deal with those challenges? For those of challenges that you have to live with, what are you going to do to handle them? You know that it is. What do you know that is a problem for you and that has stopped happening? And then how are you going to face all these challenges? And this is my personal proposal for you, so that you start building a meaning every day, that you start thinking every day about what you're doing now to build your meaning on a daily basis, and to have those three balls that we were juggling, that to keep them in balance, so that you're happier, you feel fulfilled, and then you can be an agent of change for your surrounding. You can help more people to make more positive changes. I'm Rosalina Macías, Alina Oropeza too. That's my influencer name. Thank you very much. This is my page if you need to contact me and if you want to know anything else about what I do. Thank you very much for an all association. We'll see you very soon.